Hey, you, check out this Ascent comp. It's pretty weird, right? We have 2 sentinels, not to mention no flashes. What a weird comp. Who would even run this? Well, it's actually the comp FUT were running in Masters London to get them to 5th place. So don't you feel dumb. And anyway, I kinda like it. It just sucks that the main lasting impression this comp left was a 13-2 loss to Vitality. And that's why for today, I've prepared some new playbook ideas for how I think this comp would best be run. In this video, we're going to look at some ideas for how to make this niche double senti pick work, go over some of the issues FUT faced running the comp, and finally try to patch up some of these problems with some good old-fashioned labbing. If you want to learn some new stage tech, or some new combos to take over space on Ascent, this is exactly the video for you. Let's learn. Before we can develop any ideas, we need an understanding of what this comp's goals are in the first place. FUT's comp here is what we can call an anti-meta comp. This means it's a comp designed to counter some of the strengths of comps that are more meta at the moment. So right now, this would be comps with a lot of dive and burst options. Think about the kinds of double duelist looks that Lev are known for. Let's start with how this comp wants to operate on attack. At first glance, attacking with this comp seems quite difficult, right? Its resources are stacked into info control and stalling, not big site hits. This mainly means we want to avoid big rushes or 5-man hits. Let's think about the comp's strengths and weaknesses on attack. What this comp excels at is its post plants. Once we can get the stage wall set up and the spike down, things get much easier since we have so much access to big stall tools. Getting the spike down is the hard part though. With no flashes and just a jet dash for our burst, it's hard to get past mollies and smoke set up in those main choke points. Luckily for us, another advantage to this kind of comp is its defaults. The stage slows and Cypher util make it quite easy to hold and scan for information on the map, so getting a good default and finding the weak site is the way to go. There are 2 main conclusions we can draw from all this. First, our Jett should always be holding her dash until exec time. We don't get to spend the dash early since it's our only big burst tool. Second, we need confidence using the space in mid. Being able to set up split hits on the sites will take some of the pressure off in terms of those flashes and burst options, rather than just going through one main choke point. Now, let's move on to defense. Defensively, this comp is quite simple. With the double sentinel, our aim should be to stall out those big dive options that the meta comps play around using the extra sage stall. Even for a double duelist comp, it's pretty damn hard to exec into this. The Sage also helps with holding space on the map. Using a deep early slow orb, for example, is great for early control on the sides. This is big because especially with bursty comps like the Neon Phoenix, it's important to stop them before they get an exec rolling, since it's hard to react to those fast exec options once they're set up. On the flip side, while this comp is good at holding sites, it's incredibly weak at retaking. This makes sense considering how few options you have to initiate fights. Therefore, a big goal for our comp is to control the deep information in the mains and to hard hold the sites to avoid retaking. With this in mind, let's consider one of the most important tools this comp has, the Sage Wall. To my mind, Sage Wall has 2 big roles it can play on the defense. We can use it to protect the defuse when retaking, or we can use it to section off one part of the map so the team can go stack and fight somewhere else. Since we know retaking is a weakness for this comp, it's the latter we're going to be focusing on in our case. In particular, we want to be using the wall at roughly the 1-minute mark in an ideal round. This is because with the game's current pacing, execs typically happen around the 1-minute to 40-second mark. By walling at this time, we can make time for the team to rotate to the other side of the map to stack and fight when the hit comes in, while having knowledge that the attack can't scale past the wall until it's broken. Sage's wall uptime is 40 seconds, so at that point it's not like they can wait it out either. Alright, now we know what our big goals are when playing this comp. It's finally time to add some strats to FUT's playbook. This time, I want to start with defense, since this is a pretty defense-sided comp in the first place. We're going to start by looking at FUT's defender side default. In most rifle rounds with no big strat planned, this is what their setup would look like. Just from a glance, there are a couple things we can pick up from this. Our sentinels are separated so we have solid delay and control on both sides of the map. In a comp like this, which doesn't want to retake, I like having the sentinels bolstering each site. Other than that, we're probably used to most of what we're seeing here. Omen on A to play the one-way and fight site, Sova to maintain info in B main, and our Jett can move between the 3 lanes. A good thing to point out is that in this default, Foot's most common round start is to play their Cypher Cam in deep B main for the passive info there, and combo the one-way and slow in A main to get solid control in that side. This makes it easier to play against an A split by ensuring good A main control, and enables the Omen and Sage to fight together around these 2 chokes. Where have things been going wrong for them? While there's not too much footage of this default from London because they only played 10 total rounds on this side, I did notice some struggles against mid defaults. Let's take a look at this round against G2 to get an idea. So, Foot start out with their one-way and slow and a deep cam in B main. G2 take mid control by droning past their Phoenix wall and pushing out top. Over at A, the response is to wall catwalk and recast the Omen one-way to cut out an A split and send heavy rotations towards spawn. Zeus's wall gets broken, and suddenly we're 3 eyes at A and Sop with no space in spawn. Crossley gets out traded, and the round comes down to Yetajay anchoring on B. How can we clean this up? I'd first say the wall here felt quite premature. We can see how Foot end up scrambling to check back in that A space in the mid round. Since they held A main control, I think relying on the Sage slow in the first instance here would have been ideal. Zeus can play contact, slow if he's pushed, and then call in some help if he's forced to spend the wall. We can even make a little trap play here. Say Zeus spots from tree and throws a slow and walls like this. If this wall starts taking shots and confirms multiple players, Zeus can play on top of it and use an Omen blind to swing in like this. We get access to these kinds of traps because Sociable has been keeping tabs on that space in A main all round. From there, our Jett can rotate around if A main gets compromised, or we can just smoke to make sure no one can capitalize on the tree fight. This cam in B main makes all the difference here because it keeps the attack honest about whether they want A or B. If you're interested in seeing some strong Sage and Omen synergy in this space, I recommend checking out PaperX's recent Ascent VODs or some old Fnatic VODs from last year. I'll put some examples in the description for anyone who wants them. Anyway, speaking of the Omen and Sage, there's a lot we can do with this duo besides trapping tree. What if the attack go for an A default to get past that combo? We can use a similar combo to the tree one in A main as well, which is one PaperX have used before. If we Sage wall across here and have our Sage stand on it, we can use an Omen blind to react to enemies shooting the wall and enable the Sage to swing out. This trap doesn't even have to yield any huge kills. As long as it's slowing down that A default, it buys time for the rest of the team to rotate around or take space back in response. We can also incorporate the Omen blind from mid here too. If the attack take that A main space, we can play the Omen forward here on catwalk, either as a 1-2 with the Jett, or just to hold deep space in another lane. Same wall, same trap, but with a new spot to blind from. We can also toy around with the Omen TP to generate pressure. Using the Omen TP, it's possible to get to Wine before the attack can scout main, but they will hear the sound cue. If we do TP, we get access to blind combos and double swings from Wine. But we can also fake it to generate pressure from the attack hearing that sound cue, and again, we're able to switch lanes quite easily between main and tree. Here's how we would want a round like this to look. If we're hard fighting for info in A main, that means our rotations are prioritized towards B, so our Cypher can start with a kill trip setup and deep cam. We're looking to hunker in on site and fight around here during those big rotations. On A, we lead with a slow, a TP, and a one-way. If there's big pressure in mid to push off our Jett, then we rotate our Sage around to play tree, slow things down, and to enable that rotation. The wall can be treated as a last resort tool against a tree push to pull a rotation in, or used in main in reaction to an exec on B. If we wall main to rotate, it means our Omen can play a more centralized position around tree to hold against the cancel. You'll notice that all of these round plans revolve around getting value from that Omen blind early in this kind of space. We haven't been talking about blinds like this to anchor site. This is simply because in a comp like this, controlling that deep space and slowing things down so we can guarantee strong rotations to flood is always our strongest option. As far as B is concerned, there's not much I'd be changing in this basic default. Yetajay quite likes his deep cam to ensure Foot can re-clear B main if he gets pressured, and tends to play his trips around enabling him to play back site. Trip 1, Trip 2, Cage 1, Cage 2. The most important thing around this space is to hold on to that B main info. Before we move on from our default, I want to talk about mobilizing our Jett and enabling the op. Foot tend to play this default quite stringently and keep the Jett in mid, but by threatening all the lanes, she can make it hard for the attack to set up a good default, especially with a sniper in hand. I would say getting an op in the Jett's hands is a pretty big win condition for this comp, just for that sweet lane control. Foot already have some pretty nice game plans for getting Sop moving in mid with the op. If the attack take B main pressure, they can confirm they've pushed all the way into main with the cam and enable Sop to prime his dash and look for a deep peek through mid. But what about having the Jett on the sides? B main is generally pretty passive for Foot, but the cam can make for a nice 1-2 setup to actually fight around this space. We can lead with the same deep cam and play our Jett on this line. If the attacker playing slow, Jett can move onto this off angle and play a 1-2 with the cam. If she spots and fires, she can tuck back here, prime the dash, and get out, and the cam can confirm if the attacker backfilling that space, or resetting after pushing the op off. If there's pressure at A, it's nice and easy to dart deep, get our Jett on an even deeper angle, and get our Sova moving to help anchor over there. How about on A? We get quite a lot of options here to set up that op. My favorite is to use the fake TP strat from earlier, and then double up the Omen and Sage around tree while Jett holds deep info at A. We get lots of options from here. If the attack default mid, we can set up an Omen blind trap here or here with the Sage, and just wall off mid if we need to rotate towards B. If Jett gets pushed off, we have access to slows and smokes to set her up on a regressed line. Congratulations! We've now turned a pretty strict default into a plethora of different options to play to our win conditions. Now, let's think a little about our ults. When we look at this comp, we can't see too many ults we can base a whole strict round plan around. Jett Ult is mainly for eco control or when a round comes down to micro plays, and Cypher and Sage ults are often spent on an audible. There are still some round plans we can conjure up though. For the Jett Ult, I want to think about how we can generate advantages in the kinds of rounds where we'll be likely to spend it early, our eco rounds. If we want to make a trap play, we can start by thinking about B main. My immediate idea is to play a formation like this. If we're in an eco round, we want to stack resources around our Jett early to generate picks from those knives. There are two big round starts available to us here to get the Jett moving. For one, we can go for an instant slow orb and shock dart to take this space and chip some players down, and walk our Jett into B main to play here with the knives, similar to the round plan we made earlier. We can also turn this into a trap play if the attack are looking to default or hit around B. By comboing the slow and dart, we can use the knives with an updraft to fight through the window for a pick. This option will only tend to generate one pick and doesn't give us very good scaling options, so it will likely be hard to get that gun unless we happen to find a lurker here. We can also use the Jett dash to generate some double swings here, and have the Sova join in too. With something like this, we're more likely to get a gun if we manage to trade out and fight cleanly with the slow, but we're also more likely to die since we're hard committing bodies to this space. The rest of the map is important too though. As we can see from this plan, mid is largely open, and A is our weak side. Regardless of what we do in B main, we're going to want to police mid in response after that exchange happens. Let's say our Jett kills one through the window and sees that they're taking B main. In which case, we can be thinking about turning and hard fighting mid with those knives while we stall out B main with the Sage util. If we just find a lurker in B main, we can be thinking about droning that space and taking it and playing more passive around the info in mid. As concerns A, we'll probably want a shotgun there. We can do the TP one-way conditioning early round and just be thinking about rotating our Omen with a Bucky or Judge between tree and A main. A trip in tree and a cage in main would help with that, and then the rest of the setup can be quite free. Playing a site level setup with the Cypher would be really nice here considering we're playing mainly around B main, but I've been liking the cage here lately for this slight bulge out here. Having this little divot gives our Omen space to play around. He can look for timing against entry duelists like this for instance to generate picks, and make time to put his own smoke up if he needs it. We can also be using the knives for reactive pushes in mid against B pressure. We obviously want our Jett taking first with those knives, especially in an eco round, so having her holding cat and pushing mid in something close to our default could yield big value. Our Cypher cam and Sova util can confirm numbers in B main and give our Jett a walk down cat. In the event of an A move by the attack, we can just play our standard default. The Sova Ult is the big one in this comp we can form whole plans around. As we know, our goals in this comp firmly revolve around not letting the attack get on site to plant. Because of this, ulting the plant is a no-go. We want to use it before then, either to get a pick while the attacker's setting up, or to get kills during their exec while the team is fighting site. The only Sova Ult round Foot showed in London was this round against G2. As we can see, this is a double extremity pressure round, deep Cypher cam to set up the instant ulting Jett dash at B, and a one-way slow orb and Sova dart combo to insta-ult A main. Things get a little dicey since the double pressure ends up with two players falling, but the round goes their way. Rounds like this are solid against these double duelist comps to stop them from setting up a hit. What I want to develop is some ideas that use the Sova Ult as a reactive skirmish tool to upset that pacing a little more. We'll start by thinking about enabling our Sova to move around a little more freely than in a standard default. Let's imagine a setup like this. Our round start can stay nice and simple. Slow Orb and Shock Dart to set up the Sage and Jett with a 1-2 in B main, and our Sova can get moving towards spawn. This way he gets plenty of options to Sova Ult either side. The reason we want our Sova with an Odin is because he can play around the spammable wall here in spawn to get value as a rotator, and has access to drone to confirm his rotations around. On A, all we need is our Omen setup to use his blinded tree and some solid info around A main, so a deep cam should do the trick. Alternatively, a safer bet could be the cam here. It gets eyes on tree if Omen backs off and can still see into main to trigger the cage if an attacker peeks. Since it's on a shallower line, it's harder to break in a default and deny information. Let's talk rotation protocols. Obviously, we'll be rotating around the map a little differently considering our information tools have moved around. As the Sova, life is pretty easy. We can hold the drone to confirm rotations either side by scouting mid, and the dart is a skirmish tool to stop those big sight hits. Let's say our B main gets pressured and Jett gets pushed out. All we gotta do is drone mid to see if it's a split being set up, and as long as our Cypher can check A main, we can rotate around, ready to dart for lane and get ulting. If noise gets cut, we can always dart to re-clear B main and reset our position. The main thing we need on the B side of the map is for Sage to try and hold that second slow orb. Combining a slow on the main choke with the dart and ult can be a devastating combo. The main thing is, we'll want to prioritize rotations towards A, since backside A needs more immediate manpower to hold. On A, we want to use the Cypher and Omen to set up that ult as well. If there's A main pressure, we can float around that side as Sova to either flood the site if there's a flat hit, or play the ult. The Omen is the key to the big plan for that Sova ult though. Using the Sova ult along this line in Cat, especially if we combo it with the blind here as the attack tries to scale, can guarantee a tag, and now an early pick before the A split even starts. In the event of A pressure, I'd probably say we'd want to play around the Sage wall on B and have our Jett move into this space in mid using the drone. As for dealing with mid, we can play a trip market to support Sova. We can abuse the deep information we get on the sides with either the cam or some good contact play, and play the Odin to spam in mid off the trip either tagging or breaking. Even if that trip gets shot, we can play for that spam for a pick and hold the sites using that main info. If we want to rotate, we can just drone to clear for any potential lurkers finding timing, and then get moving. We can also just play for the Sova ult at Cat. A start formation like this should work. Again, an Odin is strong because of the access you get to spamming this small choke from Cat, and if things move mid, you get that Omen blind to play for Catwalk. The main difference here is we'll want to drone from Cat to re-clear mid rather than going spawn for that rotation info. Finally, here's one last option for A main that I quite like. This is similar to Foot's idea, but has a different setup to build that arsenal a bit. We start in a formation like this, but our Sage and Omen are doing something a little different. We're actually going to Sage wall deep and use our Omen TP to set up a deep blind here. If the attacks start breaking the wall, our Omen blinds and Sova can let that ult rip. All Sage has to do is care the jump up option here so Omen doesn't get jump scared. Our big concern running this is the enemy Omen TP. It's common for Omens to TP this cross when defaulting A to set up swings. He will be faster than our wall. Our counter to that is pretty simple. It would take some practice on the timing, but if we Sage wall here from range just right, we can make a little corner right here. Our Omen can TP into this corner. That way he won't be an LOS of the Omen TPing. This also means that the attacking Omen is likely to think the TP went wine from the sound cue, so our Sage and Omen get a solid 2v1 to try and clear him. It will mean we have to delay the Omen TP just slightly so he can hide behind the wall. This basic round start can be used without the Sova ult too, but it would require a lot of information control in mid to make up for the wall being used so early. As for B in this one, nice and simple. Cam main, backside setup, Jett to cam mid and make sure our Sova's nice and safe. If Jett gets smoked out or B main gets taken, we have access to drone mid and a nice quick Sova rotation to look for the ult on site. Since we're walling early, we will have slightly slower rotations into B in the mid round. If we have something like Omen Ult, that's no problem. If we don't have Omen Ult, we're going to rely a lot on trying to get Jett into this space to double up sight for the hit. If we do decide to play this as an Omen plus Sova ult round, we do get a new formation option to make things easier. Just play the Jett here to give the Sova some extra cover. As lonely as Cypher looks over here, he has access to a quick Omen Ult rotation to double up on site. We'll talk about how exactly to pull off those Omen Ult rotations in this next round plan. Next up is our Omen Ult. Omen Ult can be kept nice and simple as a rotation tool, and we can treat it almost like a Euro TP by playing super strong on the Omen side to skirmish, then ult to react on the other side. Like we've said, in a comp like this, we typically want a nice balanced defense so we can hold both sides, but with the Omen Ult active, we get access to a lot more options. The round plan we make now is mainly for if we need access to a more aggressive option while that ult is active. For this, I've cooked up a little 4-1. We can feign our default with the TP, Sage Slow, and One Way, but keep resources in this space until rotation is necessary. If we respond to pressure elsewhere on the map by Sova clearing deep main, we get the ability to basically just deathball around the map and hard trade while Omen holds onto that deep A space. The best part is, it's nice and easy to time our Omen ult because our Cypher can just play kill trips and sit back sight. Once the pressure backside gets too hard, we can either TP spawn to pinch this button space along with a flank, or TP directly backside to help him if we have anyone to monitor CT. Since we save wall, we also get access to walling here if that flank comes through for the retake. If the attack want A, we just hard fight them. We can blind and triple swing and then just hold this space. As long as someone plays anti for potential flashes back through, our Sage Util and swings should be enough to hard hold this line. Once we get sick of fighting here, we can always Sage wall main and reclear mid while the attack deal with that. The big fear in this formation is the mid default, right? If our Jett gets smoked, our Cypher ends up on a bit of an island. The response to this would have to be Sova Dart A, set up our Omen, and rotate spawn and use the drone to react to any further stimulus. Ideally here, we leave the Sage in cat, and if more happens in B or mid, we just wall to keep the Omen safe while Sage joins in. As for the actual Cypher setup, I'd be thinking about playing as hard for kill trips and backside as physically possible. Maybe a one-way for B main just to make rushes difficult, and some kind of cage to hold out until the Omen smoke can come in to assist backside. Finally, I want to look at the Sage ult. It's not the easiest to plan around on defense, but if we want, we can form some plans around deep, resable duels to aggressively take over space. I'd be thinking about using the default Sage Util in A main and playing trades around mid, since 1-for-1 trades are solid if we have that res up. For a more specific round plan, this one should do nicely. As we can see, we're in a 1-3-1 to fight mid. We lead with our classic slow and one way in A main, but our Sage runs tree to play this shallow line after. Meanwhile, our mid players are looking to duel. Jett walks down cat with her dash primed, and Sova and Omen double hold bottom mid. This walk can be in response to pressure on the sides or as an instant play. With our Cypher holding info in B main, we should have pretty easy reactions to B moves by taking the mid space. If our Jett happens to die, our Sage can just wall A and use Omen smokes and double cover to get the res. But what if the attack go A? As we can see, we don't have much A main info here. This actually looks like a retake setup. Well, in this formation, the retake actually might not be too bad. Since our macro responses are built around dueling mid, we get easy access to a flank here that can leave the attackers cornered on site. But we need to make this retake as effective as possible. That means maintaining all this space during that flank. If a mid player happens to die and we want to go for that res, we'll be walling A main to keep info on site. If that wall breaks and the attack hit A, we have 3 roles to play. Make sure heaven is playable to retake from there, hold on to that tree info, and set up a flank. If the hit comes in, our Cypher can come from CT and hold out this deep line just to prevent a big push. Sova can rotate through tree and think about droning into heaven to clear, or at the very least double swinging in with the Cypher. Sage holds tree, and Omen and Jett can look to flank. Right here, timing is key. We want our flank to become known after we've established decent space in these areas. That means no triggering trips until then. This makes it hard to reactively fight heaven as the attack. From there, we gauge the response. If the attack push heaven, we speed up on the flank. If an attacker turns to hard fight the flank, we speed up in heaven and tree. We can slowly encroach till we've traded everything out. Omen flash here or here if he ends up having to come tree can set everything up nicely, and we get access to Omen TP here in main to set up double swings if we need to. This round would be especially effective if we have Sage and Cypher or Sage and Sova ults, since those ults are huge for zoning and info during such an oppressive retake. As an alternative, we can also play closer to our default but with deep fights in mid. If our Jett is taking a fight from a Mound Market or Pizza on her own, we have options to res her if she dies dueling. We can wall cat and use a combination of drone and smoke to enable the res, for instance. And there we have it, some nice all-round ideas to add some depth to those defensive holds. Now all I want to do is develop some pistol round ideas and some basic set pieces to mix in on our strong reads. We'll start with our pistol rounds. This comp has some pretty solid defensive pistol round potential. In particular, the Sage Wall is stronger in the pistol because it takes much longer to destroy, so we can lean on it in different ways to stack and go for big death ball plays. Pistol rounds are also typically faster because everyone has less util to play around, so more emphasis goes into tools like Omen Blind, which are good for skirmishes. To start off with, one thing I would want to play around are Paper X style 4-1 formations. This is the first one I managed to cook up. As we can see, here we have a strong side B with a simple play idea to take control of B main and Cypher to play site on A. For this round, I'd be looking at loadouts like this. Since we're playing hard for skirmishes, the Sheriffs are great for those double body shots. On B, Jett can proc her dash early and walk up with the Sage cover, and Omen can pre-aim a blind for the contact. If this play triggers, we threaten all the way onto this deep line to force the attack to hard clear that B main space, then we can reset for mid. Right here, we get two big options. Option 1, we wall off B main to 4-man mid from market side. Option 2, we hold the wall and leave Omen lane so we have that extra option in the pocket for later. Let's talk about this first option first. I would mainly be thinking about this option if the B main play triggers and the main bulk of the enemy team is there. If they were looking to clear B main early but we force them all the way out, we can wall and deathball into mid to get ahead of the potential rotation. The wall will cover for any potential timing that they might find reclearing B main once we leave. If our play triggers on just a lurker, or if we find none of them in there, I'd be using our second option. In which case, the Cypher Cam becomes our big decision-making tool in A. If there's a lot going on in A main, our grouped players want to heavy push this space so we can get fast rotations around tree for if that hit comes in. Our goal is to have our Sage and Sova in heaven in time for the hit so that we can use the wall as a flood tool to support the Cypher. Wall for Sage, and a dart and swing from Sova to complement. With just pistols, this play is very hard to outmaneuver. Now this next pistol is much more focused on the extremity space. Our buy will look like this. Here's our starting formation, both senties on B and our remaining 3 players around A. For this one, I'd want our trip for market here or here, and a cam to enable spam and wallbangs rather than for deep B main info. We could play it up above lane, above boat, or over market. As for our cage, I think I'd want it stairs. We'll see why in a moment. The plan on B is simple. Stall as long as possible. Since it's a pistol, the Sage Wall is invaluable for this. My idea is for Cypher to just spot main from this wall. If the attacker looking to exec here, we wall diagonally like this. The attack will have to break 2 segments just to get out of main, and the other 2 if they want to walk lane. With pistols, this is a nightmare, and it gives our Sage and Cypher massive options. We can play a crossfire here for the stairs pathing while our Sage is safe, or use jump up for counter swings. If the attack do break through the wall, then our cage is our savior. Cage up means Sage can reposition to jump up or dice, or double backside with Cypher. Otherwise, Cypher can just pop the cage as the attacker looking to come through stairs to split them up. All the while, the cam tag gives us a huge wallbang option for a pick. A common response from attackers to this setup would be to just push CT and isolate our site players. How do we handle that option? It'll have to be a case of stacking CT to trade. If that B pressure comes in, I'd want Sova rotating fast because his dart is nice for assisting on B. Omen can hold info on A and be the last man moving. If the hit comes in, our flooding players can hold for CT aggro and play to flood once site proper is under pressure. A cam that can spot that pathing will help too. Things change if the attack breaks that Cypher trip early. If the trip goes down, we can look to Sage Wall B flush with the choke and set up our little crossfire between lane and stairs. Either senti can spot this cross from button and peel back if they take fire, or even look to swing together for a pick. Of course, spawn will need care once we've given up this cross though. The only time I'd say to hold the wall is if there's simultaneous pressure in mid and A. In this case, we might want to contact into B main and hold the wall to keep deep info that stops a B split. Speaking of, let's talk about A. How should our A players be playing? I'd lead with a one-way and shock dart to get that deep space. From there, carrying options from mid becomes important. Getting into a setup like this would be my ideal. If mid or B get pressured, Omen can get comfy in main while we set up rotations. If A gets pressured, we can set up a double swing here with the blind to slow things down and can use smokes like this to hold main. Unless we're against some very niche kinds of comps, fighting in this main space will usually be our goal to start with. Then we can move into a formation like this. tree is cared by Jett, and Sova maintains Omen's close position from backside for a good hold. If tree gets pressured early, we can try and contest that space by smoking main and looking for crossfires around this space. Sova's position means that Omen has much more freedom of movement in these kinds of situations. Our biggest worry is a rotation towards tree after B or mid get pressured. Worst case is if the trip breaks, we end up in something like this. Holding that A main space becomes crucial in this instance. As long as we have A main, the wall B gives us move enough to quickly react to any tree pressure. Finally, all I want to do is add a couple round plans to give us some variation from our standard default. These are round plans we'll want to pull out either in economically important rounds or as potential counters to big common ults the attack might pull out. The first thing I want to play with is having our Sage and Cypher together in those rifle rounds. We know playing them together isn't the best because we want our stalls spread quite evenly. However, playing them together can be strong for responding to big exec ults like Phoenix and Vice. Here's the basic idea. We have our Sage and Cypher on A and our other 3 players at B. At its core, the idea is to fake our default on A with the same one-way and slow, but have Omen playing to blind off deep contact in B main. If that triggers, we have drone to check the rest of the map for signs of a B split. But if Sova spots in mid early, we can set up the Jett in B main with the Omen and start thinking about our stall options on A. This way, it's very difficult for the attack to set up a B split, which is the big threat in those ult rounds. The big thing is to try and keep that Sova dart. If the attack retake B main control or bully us into a potential B split, we'll be relying on getting a dart and slow combo out for lane to handle things like Phoenix ult. Our Sage should be walling and rotating with this in mind. If we can get access to a slow and dart on the main exit, we get access to either hard choking this space with some strong crossfires, or we can just set the Omen up on site and flood on our usual timing. If A main gets taken, we can just look to prevent that A split with a wall tree and fast rotations in from the B side. The extra Sage slow and Cypher should buy enough time to stall out ults like Vice ult or kill a Phoenix ult rushing in nice and easy. If the attack get into B main and then cut noise, the Sova dart can be our last resort option to reset our rotations. That is, assuming our Cypher doesn't have any deep info left in A. If he does, we can just use that. We can also look to counter those ults by using our Sage in more of a rotational capacity. Say we're in a formation like this. We can slow and shock B early for that pressure and then get Sage moving, perhaps to care mid or set up a cross around market. From here, Sage gets easy rotation options to slow sight hits and cut out splits through mid. In a round like this, I'd want Omen early smoking here rather than one-waying. This is just so we can pull resources out clearing wine before that hit, so if any ults come out, the Sage slow is guaranteed more value. This formation is nice because we get access to slow and wall on B if the attack looked to rush. Against Vice ult, this is particularly nice because there will always be a blind spot here against that ult. If we have a player sit back sight to dodge the ult, the Sage stall and Sova dart should support them back into a strong position before the hit. And of course, they'll still have their gun. In this formation, we also get access to a cool bait play in B main. If the attack go for a late rotation through B, we can have Jett holding this choke point and Sova on an off angle deeper in main. Jett can be responsible for taking first contact or breaking drones or clearance util, which will bait Sova in to multi-frag from the corner. Using the Jett here is strong because Jett is the agent you'd typically expect to be on the deeper line, not a Sova. Finally, we can also look to play our default a little differently to generate space elsewhere. On B, our Cypher can play more or less the same as usual. Kill trips, cam for main info. Our Sova can scout top mid to cover our Jett who's looking for a deep line towards tile. She can do this with an op or a rifle. To facilitate this movement, we can use our conditioning of our standard default on A and actually play a more passive game. One way and play an up down like this to catch the preliminary peek. Ideally we get that kill, Sage can slow to give Omen time to smoke, and then we have stall enough to take over mid and claim fast rotations through tree. Playing the up down like this works nicely because Omen can tuck here to TP if he needs to get the heat off, and Sage has dice to hide behind to slow and even get her wall off from range if needed. The best part is, if we lose our Jett, we still have options to play around here. Since we have good info in B main, we can play around that to inform our rotations at A. This formation is a nice option against Omen Ult because we give ourselves easy access to spawn from A. Since our usual default plays quite deep on all lanes, the attack might think they have an opening to crunch with an Omen Ult, but if we can predict that play, Omen and Sova have easy options to cover. The usual play with Omen Ult is to Omen Ult spawn, pull a player from one of the sites, and then move in through main to capitalize on the site being weaker. Playing to cover our spawn on our side with Sage and Omen is strong against this because Sage can easily hard stall for rotation to come in good time. By now, I'm feeling pretty confident in our defense with this comp. We've developed some solid ult plans, worked on our default, created some pistol and potential bonus round ideas, and even made some plans to counter some big ults. This isn't by any means a full in-depth playbook, but it's a great bulk added to what Foot showed in London. Since this video is getting quite long, and a video of this nature takes incredibly long to make, I'm going to leave things here. If you're interested in a part 2 going over the attack, let me know in the comments, and we can move back to it. If there's any other comps or teams that you think this kind of video would be good for, please let me know. In any case, thank you very much for watching, and as always, I hope you have a lovely day.